everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark TV. You know who I am, Dr. Angela Butts-Chester, and you know what I like to do on the show. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, I am excited about my guest today. His name is Dean Skewes, and we are talking about his book, I Drove a Red Car to a Better Me. So go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Dean. Thank you so much for joining me here for Daily Spark TV.
Good morning, Dr. Angela, and thank you very, very much for having me on your show. I feel very privileged.
Absolutely. I love having our international guest on, and I think that our viewers enjoy it as well. You get a very well-rounded perspective of what's going on in the world. And we find that no matter where we lived, we kind of have a lot in common. So I love it. Now, as is tradition, I always allow my guests to have a moment or two to kind of introduce themselves to everyone, just in case they're not familiar with you or with your work. So who would you say that you are, kind of in a nutshell?
I'm a very simple person. I've been a sheep shearer, and we have a family farm that we run sheep and a few cattle on in a little village called, near a little village called Watson's Creek in New South Wales in Australia. And actually, we've just had some snowfall the last couple of days here, so it's been a little bit chilly. But yeah, so I've grown up in this area all my life. Was born here and raised here, obviously, and like I said, a very simple person. I never imagined that I would ever possibly write a book or even be on an adventure, anything like this. But I'm finding it absolutely amazingly enjoyable. And
absolutely. And you know, I'm a cool weather kind of gal, so I would enjoy a little bit of snow no matter when it comes. So that's awesome. I love it. Now, about being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do? Is it something that you found that perhaps you had a little bit interest as you started to live life? Or did you find that life simply presented the opportunity and you said, why not?
Life did present an opportunity, and after we had the car accident and I was debilitated and laid up for a few months, I did a lot of reading, and eventually I wheeled myself over my wheelchair to the computer and started to write my life story for our children in particular, and that ignited a flame in me that I really did enjoy it. I found that it was a really enjoyable experience, something that was so foreign to me. I'd never written like that before.
And I love asking that question because I never know what the authors are going to say. And I find that just as many that say, I've always wanted to do this, there are just as many that say, I had no idea that life was going to present this opportunity, but I'm glad that I seized the opportunity. So I hear you. I think that's awesome. Now, the title of your book, I must admit, I like it. It's a little quirky. It's a little curious. I drove a red car to a better me. I have to ask you, why is that the title of your book?
Well, that's a really good question. I had written the book, obviously, not obviously, I'd written the book and I had no idea of the title at all. But I had written half a dozen suggestions down on a bit of paper that I thought were really good titles. And then I lost the bit of paper. My filing system is that good. So it just came to me one day. I had said to people, I thought that personally, I felt I was a better person after the experience of the accident and my rehabilitation. And just driving the red car to a better me, it just seemed to tick all the boxes. It seemed to pretty well describe the events and what had happened. So I've been delighted ever since then that the opportunity presented itself. And I'm sure I lost the piece of paper that had the other half a dozen suggestions on it for that reason. I'm sure that it was meant to be.
Absolutely. And I have to agree with you there. I think that as I start to live life a little longer each day, I find that those things that just happen, they happen for some type of reason, either lesson learned, something gained. So I definitely have to agree with you there. Now, if we were on radio, I would give our listening audience this disclaimer. The next question I'm about to ask you, if you want to know how it ends, you have to buy the book. But I think that it is also true for our viewers here as well. If you want to know the ending, you have to buy the book. But I want to ask if you could please tell us a little bit about the storyline of your book.
Well, in 2013, I was 50 years old, felt bulletproof. The world was just wonderful, and celebrated my 50th birthday with lots of friends around. And I was actually looking at people that I'd worked with and mates that I had for years. And I was telling myself, gee, you look, you're doing pretty well, Dean. You're looking after yourself reasonably well, and you're holding your own against these blokes. But anyway, then we had a car accident only a couple of months later. And I went from just this bulletproof, could do anything person to the most hopeless, the most hopeless person for a couple of months. I was in need of people to do the most basic things for me. It was a truly humbling experience. My book, it covers that journey from that accident for the 7 years that it took for me to finally take that last step in recovery. So it's a warts and all account of those 7 years, and all the ups and downs, and the great moments, and the not so great. But like I said, it's a very warts and all story. I held nothing back because I couldn't. As I was writing, I felt I had to be honest with myself, and I had to be truthful. And if I left anything out or dismissed anything as not relevant or not important, the story lost its honesty. So that's pretty well, obviously there's a lot more to the book, but that's the main gist of it.
And thank you so much for that little bit, making sure that the story stayed true. I know that for so many authors, that can be a tough decision. How much do they share in book one, or is it going to be a series, or do they share it all, or do they share just 75%? So I'm sure that is a quite challenging decision to make. And I'm glad that you were able to make it to a point where you were comfortable, but still stay authentic to your story. Now, with that being said, and thank you for that segue, at least for me, and that is about how you choose or how you chose to publish your book. For many of the authors that I have on, they'll say, well, I wanted to self-publish because I wanted to stay authentic to the story. Others will say, I chose the publishing house because I didn't want to have to do all of the little things. I wanted to leave it to the professionals. How did you determine how you wanted to choose your book, to publish your book? I'm sorry.
Well, I never imagined that the book would be anything more than a recollection of those 7 years for my family, as a record for my family, for my grandkids, and possibly future generations to look back on as a snapshot of that 7 year period. So I had no idea at all that the book could ever be any more than that, and I chose to self-publish because I had no idea or concept of publishing at all. And I had very little faith. And obviously at my age, I didn't have years to wait for some publishing house to actually maybe see the merits or get a bit of an idea as to whether the book might be something that was that they would be prepared to take up. So self-publishing seems to be the only avenue to me. And I just went online and Googled self-publishing houses, and yeah, and that's how it went. And I'm delighted with that I did do that, because I have maintained control of the book. I can do whatever I want to with it, and I could, as you said, just keep it honest and just how I wanted it.
You know, I find that so many of the authors that choose to self-publish, they say the same thing. You know, I really just wanted to make sure that it was my story and nothing was changed. And flip side of that coin, like you said, I don't have time to wait around and make sure that someone hears my story and, you know, tells me that it's okay. It's absolutely okay, just the way it is. And self-publishing gives you that control and to be able to get it out there. So I definitely understand that. Now, with any trauma that has happened, any injury that has happened, there is that time where we need recovery, both for our physical bodies and to have and regain our healthy mindset. During that time period, did you find that there was any particular challenge now that you're able to look back on it? Is there any particular challenge that you can say, wow, I really learned a lot about myself during this particular stage?
I think one of the most poignant points that I reached was where I felt completely hopeless and completely helpless. We were in a desperate situation. I found we were going through the worst drought Australia had gone through in 100 years. We weren't in the drought at the time of the accident, but weather conditions were getting worse and the seasons were getting drier, and progressively over the 6 or 7 years, it ended up being the worst drought in 100 years. But I was very helpless and very hopeless, and I'd never felt like that before. I'd never been in a position like that before. I lost all sense of self-worth. I felt as if I couldn't be of use to Maurice, my wife, my children, my family, the farm. I felt as if I had nothing to offer or give. I was a hindrance, I was a liability, and that was really tough for me. I think finding the strength and the purpose to move past that and to regain my self-worth, I think that was the biggest challenge that I faced. I remember I managed to go to work for a couple of days shearing, and it was really hard for me after probably 2 years after the accident. I went and did a couple of days shearing, and I came home after work the last day, and I had a check. The bloke had paid me for the work I did, and I put it on the table, and I'd never felt so proud, because I felt as if I was once more contributing to our family, and I hadn't felt like that for 2 years. I just felt like a liability. So reaching that point of regaining that self-worth and that feeling of self, that was the biggest hurdle that I had to face.
Thank you so much for that answer. I love it, because I know that there's someone out there that is going through a version of that themselves. As a breast cancer survivor, I know what it's like to depend on a loved one or have to have someone there to help you get through that recovery period. And it can be difficult. It can be tough. And you're right. When you get to that point where you're starting to feel like yourself and you're able to contribute the way that you're used to contributing, even if it's just, on a very small level, but to get that sense of self back, it really and truly does kind of add an additional ray of sunshine to your day. And you say, I'm back. I'm getting there. So I couldn't agree with you more. Well, Dean, it is time for us to go to break. But before we do, can you remind everyone, please, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
Well, my book is called I Drove a Red Car to a Better Me. And my name is Dean Skewes, and the book is available on Amazon. And at the moment, I have a web page, Dean Skewes. I can be found. You can find some information on me there. Yes, that's pretty well it, Dr. Angela.
All right, alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this.
Tell you about my book, I Drove a Red Car to a Better Me. It's a story of my 7-year journey to recovery after a car accident I had in 2013. The book is available on Amazon and through Barnes and Noble, and I just hope that you go out and grab a copy and enjoy the book as much as I enjoyed writing it. Thank you very much.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark TV. You know who I am. I'm Dr. Angela Chester. My guest today is Dean Skewes, and we're talking about his book, I Drove a Red Car to a Better Me. Thanks for joining us. Dean, I have to ask, now that you are better, you've been through all of that and you are getting back into the swing of things the same way before the accident. There may be someone who is going through something quite similar, be that it was a car accident, a skiing accident, or they are the caretaker for someone who has experienced an accident. Is there any bit of advice that you could give to that person to help keep them encouraged, to help keep them motivated during this trying or difficult time?
Well, I found that it's so important to be surrounded by family and friends, and you can't be dismissive of those relationships. I know there are times when you feel like crawling into your own shell and just locking the rest of the world away. I found at times that I felt like that myself, but I spiraled to deeper places when I did that. Opening your heart and opening your mind to friendships and your family, even in those darkest times, is always helpful to you. It's always a benefit. You always come out of that better. I found that was very important. It's a terrible situation to be in. It really is. And we also have to be sure we don't lose sight of the fact that it is our battle, and we do have to fight it basically ourselves. You have to try and find the strength, the drive, the motivation, and you've got to have a reason to want to recover. You've got to want a reason. There has to be an end goal. And my end goal was my family. I had one little grandson at the time, not at the time of the accident, but a couple of years into the journey, first little grandson was born, and I wanted to be the biggest part that I could play. I wanted to play the biggest part in his life that I could. And to that end, I wanted to be able to run and jump and play with him, even as a 60-year-old. I wanted to be able to do everything that I could. And so you have to find an end goal. You have to find a reason. You have to stick at it. You have to battle through those tough days and force your way through with all that support that you can harness. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There always is a light at the end of the tunnel. You just have to keep your eye on that light.
Oh, I love that bit of advice. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that for so many people, that's where they get stuck. They can't quite see the light, or they don't believe that the light is bright enough at the end of the tunnel. And so they're not sure, where they are in the journey. But you are so right. Just keep moving forward. You will definitely go through it and be better for having gone through it. And what I mean by that is that everyone who's been through a something, they always have this these nuggets of wisdom that they're able to share with others that can help other people get through it as well. So it's kind of each one helping the next person get through their trials and tribulations as well. I love it. Now, you mentioned friends and family. Now that you are a published author with this book, how has your friends and family reacted to seeing you as a published author?
Well, it's quite surprising, actually. They're not really surprised. I've always been a little bit, probably different. I write songs and I write poetry, and I read a lot. And even though it was a shock to them that I'd written a book, they could see where it had came from. They could see that it was something that obviously I had inside me. I must admit, it was a very raw talent for writing. It wasn't certainly not polished, and anybody that reads my book will definitely realise that I'm certainly not a polished author at all. But yeah, they were surprised, yes. And they've all. One thing that I've really enjoyed about it, Dr. Angela, is a lot of my friends and family have read the book, obviously, and they've all found a particular spot in that book, a particular story, or that they can relate to, and it's been special to them, that has touched them in some way. And I'm so happy that my book doesn't seem to be a singularity. It seems to be, it's not complex, but it is multidimensional, and there's something in there for everybody, I believe, anyway. Yeah, so like I said, they weren't surprised. I think they were just excited. Excited was probably, the word.
I love it. I love it. I know that for so many people, having that encouraging word from a family member, or from your best friend, or just from your friends in general, can really be that additional fuel that you need to get through the process, to see it through to the end. So I'm glad that you got that encouragement. That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, when it comes to the ideal reader, I know that for many people, when they're sharing their stories, they may talk about what happened in a way that they say, this might not be appropriate for, a 14 or 15-year-old, but maybe a graduating high schooler, older than college age, absolutely perfect. They can read the book. What age range would you say is appropriate for reading, or is there a particular age, that age and older, that would be appropriate to read your book?
I think it's not a heavy book, and I've written it very, very, very nicely. I refrain from using any bad language or anything that in the book. I'm generally not a person that uses bad language, so it's a very easy book to read, and I think it's appropriate for anybody who's capable of just, there are a few adult concepts in the book, but there's nothing heavy or confronting. But I just think I think there's something in there for anybody, and it may not be about how they may not get out about how to deal with dramas or cope, but just something to reflect upon in your life, just something to make you think about maybe how you're looking at things and perceiving things and understanding the world. So I think even for a younger reader, there are little snippets in there that just might make you, have a bit of a think about where you are and about what's happening.
I love it. I love it. Dean, I couldn't have said it better myself. And what a beautiful way to end the show. I could not agree with you more. Now, before I let you go, though, can you remind everyone one last time, please, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And how do we stay in contact with you?
Well, my name's Dean Skewes, and I've written a book. I drove a red car to a better me. The book is available on Amazon, and you can look up Dean Skewes on the web and find my website and have a little bit of a read about me.
Dean Skewes, thank you again for being a guest on Daily Spark TV.
Oh, Dr. Angela, it's been an absolute pleasure. I love your beautiful smiling face, and this has been such a delightful experience for me. Thank you so very, very much.
Absolutely. And viewers, thank you for spending some time with us here today as well. We hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you today. As always, may the Lord continue to bless you. May you remember that His grace and His mercy is always with you. Until next time, everyone. Bye-bye.
Know how to wear your face mask correctly. First, wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds or use hand sanitizer that contains at least 60% alcohol. Put your face mask over your nose and mouth and secure it under your chin. If the mask has loops, hook them around your ears. If it has ties, secure them at the base of your neck and crown of your head. Make sure you can breathe easily. Remove your mask carefully. Untie the straps or unhook the loops from your ears and pull the mask away from your face without touching the front of your mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth when taking off your mask. Wash your hands for at least 20 seconds immediately after removing your mask, or use hand sanitizer that contains at least 60% alcohol. Learn more at cdc.gov/coronavirus and coronavirus.gov.
Welcome to Daily Spark TV. Are you an author with a faith-based book? Be a guest. Serious about your product or service and want to try something new? Sponsor an episode. I see you're ready to get started. So visit drangela.chester.com. Thanks again for watching Daily Spark TV.